So this week in week 2 is going to be covering OOP. It's really just meant to be a review. So there's a link out here for OOP. If you need remembrance from 360 or if it didn't get covered as well, this does a really good job of explaining it. Students in the past have used this as kind of a reference guide, and it helps get you an idea of what you want to do on that side. You will end up doing the OOP style by working with these APIs that we're going to work with this week, dealing with packages like Faker and such. In terms of file organization, the only thing I'm showing you there is making sure that you keep everything in your project together. And we'll walk through like setting up PyCharm here today. Again, you're welcome to use Visual Studio Code or any of the other IDEs, but PyCharm's the one that I'll mostly get you guys up to speed on. And then on Thursday, we'll cover Python Faker. So we'll get you started on APIs. We'll cover Python Faker on Thursday. And then next week, you guys will do an extension of this API. So you'll essentially have 2 weeks of API stuff. It's just so you can get familiar with how to draw data out, how to print it, how to organize it, that kind of stuff. All right. Let's see. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and launch PyCharm here. And I assume you guys online can still see a screen, so that's good.
I can.
Okay, and then give me a second here to get out of my other project. Okay, so to set up a new project, hopefully everybody's got PyCharm installed based off what we described in week 1. If not, you can install the toolbox. Inside the toolbox down here, you can install PyCharm. If you see the other one in there that's like PyCharm Community, I think it's still in there. This one, don't use this one. Make sure you get the full professional one because you guys get free access to that. Okay. It's also going to be a lot easier when you start working with different types of projects. It has all the pre-built in stuff for you. So in our case, we're going to go ahead and start a new project here. Now, this isn't something that we're going to push out to GitHub or anything. This is just something for you locally to be playing with. If you did choose to kind of store this out on GitHub, which you could do at this point. So to do that, you would just go out to your GitHub account and go ahead and log in. We'll do that just for the sake of the video here so everybody kind of sees what it is. I can't remember if this is actually tied to the right account for me. It is not. All right, go back. All right, there we go. Say I don't think that's the right account. Give me a second here. There it is. Okay. So in here, when you guys start out, like for your mini projects and stuff, you would follow the same process. We'll do it here just so you guys can keep your API stuff along the way if you choose to do so. So we'll go to New. And in your repository name, this is where you would follow the instructions that are in Blackboard. So for example, it'd be like mini project 1, your name or whatever it would be. In this case, you can call it whatever you want because we're just going to use it to practice APIs. So I'm just going to call it just that, practice API. Okay. Once you get that in the repository name, you can put a description if you choose. Doesn't really matter for your purposes if you want to do that. What does matter is down here, we'll go ahead and tell it to add the README. And then on the git ignore, we're going to go ahead and scroll down and choose Python. And that will set up a pre-git ignore for us. On this license side, if you were writing actual software, you could attach it to a given license. Each license has its own unique ways of doing stuff, right? whether you want to make this open source or something else or closed source, et cetera. In this case, it doesn't matter. We're not going to add any kind of licensing to that. So we'll add create repository. And you should have this little generic README here. You should end up with a git ignore inside your package. And now you're ready to use this in PyCharm or Visual Studio, whichever one you choose. So to do that, you'll just simply click down here on the down arrow. And then on this HTTPS, we'll hit copy. And then from there, back here in PyCharm, you can go ahead and hit clone repository. And what's best over here is if you actually add your GitHub account directly to the system. So you could go to GitHub, log in via GitHub, authorize, and it would automatically authorize you, in which case when you come back here, it's now connected directly to my GitHub account. And so I can just come down here and find my practice API and hit clone. If you don't want to set it up that way, you can just click on the repository, copy and paste that URL in up here, and it would go ahead and clone it out as well. All right. This makes it a little handier because you're going to end up tying your GitHub account to your PyCharm anyway. So I'm going to click on this one and hit clone. And that will check out the code from GitHub. When this comes up here, if you guys have this for the first time, you can go ahead and just trust everything inside your PyCharm project, or if you want just the one, you could do that too. All right. So as this launches, sometimes it'll take a little bit to index and do things down here. The first thing you have to do when you check it out from GitHub is to add an interpreter down at the bottom. So this marries it up with whatever version of Python you want, things like that, whether you're going to execute that locally, et cetera. So you'll click on this no interpreter down at the lower right, and then add interpreter and add local interpreter. At this point, again, you should already have Python installed on your machine. When you come in here and it looks for the base Python, it says I don't have one, which means that's because I wiped this machine and didn't do that. So I didn't follow directions back from last week. Let's go back out here to Python.
Real quick, how did you go to that in PyCharm? How did you get to show that dialog? I don't.
Just go at the very beginning, new project. It should show up.
It says pure Python. Oh.
So let me get Python installed here. Let's see here. That works. Install. So one thing you'll notice in this class and in the videos, nothing is scripted. This is not a lecture or whatever. Like you're going to see me do stuff on here. You're going to see me click on the wrong thing like I just did and do that kind of stuff, right? The goal is in this case, it's probably going to happen because it's going to happen to somebody else. So I think most of you took Python with me up until I stopped teaching it. So you should already know that style. Or even if you didn't, you watched the videos of the last time anyway.
Yeah, I guess I cannot get it to do what you did. So when I click new project, it says it gives me a whole bunch of project types, but I don't have it doesn't give me the option to go to GitHub. I must have done something wrong.
Let's see here. Close out of PyCharm.
Sorry.
Launch it up here. So if I close this one, you should get this screen.
What did you do to get that? I'm just not seeing that. New file or directory?
No, close project.
Oh.
And then from here, you can go to, like I said, new project and start one here. You are actually going to want to click on clone repository and then go to GitHub.
Okay, there we go.
All right, so this one's already pulled down, so I can pull this up. Let's come in here, and you want to disable this just so you don't have path issues. Okay, great. So now that that's in, if we come back down here to the interpreter. By the way, if you get this Microsoft Defender thing, go ahead and just tell it to exclude the folders. That will make sure that it doesn't try to sit there and scan all your project files for malware type stuff. So new interpreter, local interpreter, yay, and there it found the Python 3.13. Nothing else we need to check here, just simply click OK. And so what that does is create a virtual environment of Python for your project. Those of you that haven't played with virtual environments, the idea behind that is you install Python on the machine. However, we want to create a version of Python that is just for our project. That way, if we're installing a bunch of packages, it doesn't affect the underlying machine, the actual computer under the hood. This also makes sure that you only install the packages that are necessary for the project. So one thing, if you don't do that, and later on I have you do a pip freeze, and it basically gives me a list of all the Python packages you installed for your project. When I go to run your project, I have to install those packages. If you don't do it nice and cleanly, I'm sitting there waiting for 15 minutes to install every package that you've ever done in Python. That's not what we want for our projects. So always create a virtual environment, always associate that interpreter with your project, and then I'll show you how to do the pip freeze and all that kind of stuff here in a little bit. All right. If all works, down here at the bottom, you should see just this, Python 3.13. The name of your project should always be in parentheses. So first thing you do when you log into PyCharm, look down there and make sure that that's still attached. Because if it's not and you're having troubles, somehow the interpreter got associated to something different, just click on it and make sure you associate it with the correct project one. All right. That's probably one of the number one issues students have issues with. Yeah, Rafat? Yeah.
Rafat. So I'm at the same stage as you are, but the only difference is when I click on the readme.md, it does not let me edit anything. I'm not able to see that editor tab.
Yeah, so you're probably seeing something like this over here.
Yes.
Yep. So these three icons up here, the one on the far right will give you a preview of what README looks like. You can click the middle one for a side by side so that you can see it in real time what it looks like, or far left will give you just straight code.
Cool. Yep. It's fixed. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
I never got to ask for that virtual environment. I'm a pain in the ass, I know.
You didn't. You have to go down and do it. So you click down here at the bottom and then click on add new interpreter and add local interpreter.
Huh. Sorry.
That's all right. Okay, so that should all come up. No big issue on that side. And then you'll get your files over here on the left. The next thing you guys want to do is come in here to your README, and we can just say this is for practice with APIs. Doesn't matter what you put here. Now, when you guys do your actual projects, there's a default README template that you guys will just copy and paste in. For the sake of this, why don't we do that? So if we come back out here to Blackboard and we go to, let's see here, GitHub mini projects, tips and tricks. Grab this GitHub README template like this, and you guys can just simply grab all of this, copy that, go back into PyCharm and paste it in there. All right. This is going to use the GitHub style formatting. There's a whole link on how to do READMEs for GitHub and that. I encourage you to follow that. For me, all I need you to do is obviously come in here. You're not Jane Doe. Put your name, not my name. I'm Jason Zeller. You are not. And then whatever this project is. So in this case, we're just going to say API testing or something. Okay. Down here, make sure you give it a project title. So an actual title, API project testing, and then the description and everything else down below. All right, for now, we're not going to fill any of this out. It's just placeholder, leave it there, that's fine. Okay. In your other projects and stuff, if there's somebody you want to give acknowledgements for code, like you grab something from Stack Overflow or you grab something over here, I'm totally fine with that. Please just list it down here at the bottom. That's all I ask. It's kind of like citing your sources in an APA paper, only code style. All right. What we need to do is go to our git ignore file. So we'll double click that. And then down at the bottom here, we'll scroll all the way to the bottom. And you'll see this section here for PyCharm. Okay. Yeah.
Is this program fighting stuff?
Yes, yes it is.
I thought it was from 104.
Oh, it was, and then we moved it last week up here. So
Thank you.
yep. Let's see here. So I just clicked on that. We got to do that. You'll scroll down and find this PyCharm folder down here. And then on this idea line, we want to undo the comment mark. So take that hashtag out of there. You'll do this every single time that you guys have a project. What this does is keep you from committing all of your PyCharm settings out to your project. It'll make sure those don't ever get committed out to GitHub, which could have like password files and other stuff in there. So you don't really want to commit that folder. All right. So we save that. And then the first thing we want to do is come over here to commit. And we will grab both of those files, right? We updated our README and our git ignore. And so we just need to write a commit message that says that. So something like updated README and git ignore. Okay. The more detailed you are here, the better off you are serving yourself when you get to that. So if you are short and don't give a good explanation, then later on when you're trying to go find your code, you have to read your own comments. So you'll find out that the more you comment, the better off you are. Down here at the bottom, you'll have commit and push. We always want to do commit and push. All right. So we'll hit commit and push. What that does, and this is looking at a line separator, you can go ahead and just fix and commit for that. You may get popped up with this get username stuff on this side. You can just put in your actual username and whatever email address is associated with your account. You can decide whether you want to set this globally for your computer or if you want to do it on a per project level, you can just hit submit. All right. You won't get asked that from here on out. It's just on the first time. So the way Git works, and we talked a little bit about that last week, is every one of these little commits is an instance that you can go back to. So you really want to commit often when you're going through it. And then when you push it, you're pushing it out to GitHub server at this point. So you want to be in the habit of not only committing, but always committing and pushing out to GitHub. That way, if a laptop dies, desktop dies, whatever, you can always pull your code back and you're right back where you left off. And I can't begin to tell you how many times that's saved me. So I strongly encourage it. I've had students that came in very upset that they lost all their work on their machine and they were committing, they just weren't pushing. So it wasn't actually out there at GitHub. All right. So if you push, as a matter of fact, we've committed, right? And we can double check this before we push. If we go out to our program and we hit refresh, you'll notice that it's still the original README. When we come out here and hit push, it will tell us it's committed. And if we wait long enough on this pushing, we will see it got pushed to origin main, which is the main branch. And if we come out here and refresh, we can see that our project got updated on GitHub. All right. It's always best to come back and double check your work and make sure it's actually getting pushed out there. Anybody have any questions? I know you're going to be catching up. Everything's recorded, so you can go back and watch that. No big deal.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody online have any questions getting that far?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so back in our project, I want to close this and take us back to GitHub. And so in GitHub for this week, there's a link out here to Rapid API. There's a bunch of other APIs you guys can go play with. Don't think that you have to use Rapid API. It's just one that I've used in class before. If you have a project that you have in mind and they have some kind of API, you're wanting to consume data from them or interact with them, you're more than welcome to use them. Rapid is one. There's another couple ones out there if you just do a Google search for Python API. Let's see here. DataQuest is one. It's a good. Fast API is another one. That's for building your local one though. Let's see. API. What do I want here? Examples. Repository. That's the word I'm looking for. Let's see here. There's PyPy. There's a bunch of there. If you do enough Google searching, you'll find different repositories of things of those. So you can see Fast API. Let's go to that one, or Rapid API here, rather. And so what this is you can go to their API hub, and you're going to see a bunch of different categories of different APIs that are out there. You could see something like, for example, Zillow here, right? And Zillow is going to be real estate data. you can use Python to go gather information from Zillow if you wanted to do that. All right. Some of these are free, some of these are paid for, kind of depending. Obviously, I'm not asking that you do any of the paid for ones. Just do with what you find interesting. So I'm going to come out here to the API Hub. You can do searches through here. You can look at the top categories, or for example, if we want cybersecurity one, this leaks API is a good one. It's where you can check your private data to see if it's shown up in releases and that kind of stuff out here. So let's look at this one, for example. You'll need to create an account up at the top if you don't already have one. You can log in with your GitHub or your Google, whichever one you decide. I believe I still have one here. Yep. Let's go back to cybersecurity and let's look at this links one, or this leaked one here. So when you find this up here in the upper right, you're going to see this subscribe to test. This would be for you to be able to play with this particular API. Some of these are going to be advertised here on Rapid API, like you can see the pricing for this particular one. And so this one requires money. Obviously, we're not going to play with that one, right? Let's go find another one. Some of these are going to be free. Some of these you can just go straight to whoever the vendor is and get the access to the API for free, right? If you route it through Rapid API, you end up having to pay for it. So in other words, all I want you to do is go find an API that you can play with. So let's look in here and let's see. There used to be a way that you could just find all the free ones. Anybody got a thing that they want to see here?
What about food?
Food, okay. Yep, that's usually the one that we go through. So where's the food one? There we go. That one I know pulls, let's see here. There used to be, see a trending one. Let's see if this one has a cost for it. It does not. So in this case, there's only one endpoint. And so when you deal with APIs, those are endpoints. Those are the things that you can retrieve information from. And in this case, there's one for get nutritional info, and it looks like your input is going to be something inside of there. So a fillet of Sam, like this one, you actually just give it a text string, and then it would give you back the nutritional info. That's because it's kind of built into an API, it looks like, or not an API, an AI, as a way of kind of going through and play there. Let's see if there was another one here. I was hoping for one that had a lot of endpoints. So let's look at.
The first one have a lot of endpoints.
Just clicked on the same one too, didn't I? Which one did you say?
The first one of food.
Of food.
Yeah.
Let's see here. This one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So you can see all these different endpoints over here. Now there's get, which means that you're going to retrieve something from there. There's post, where you're going to send information up and then something's going to get returned back to you on that side. So you got to remember get and post. Get, you're going to retrieve information given some parameters. Post, you're going to be sending data to the server that may or may not return a result. So just depends on how those particular options are written. So for example, in this analyze recipe, you are going to send your recipe up to it and it will return some kind of example response over here. All right. So let's subscribe to this one. Yeah, there you go. So on the free ones, you can see that you can get up to 400 results a day for free. If you go beyond that, then it's 0.003 cents. All right. Start a free plan. Usually you don't even have to put in a payment method here.
Yeah, you have to.
Now they want you to put in a payment method with a 50 cent. All right. We're going to find a totally different API this year. They've changed all of this. So, Rapid. There was a couple of these that I've used in the past. If anybody has one that they've played with or anything else, again, this is an open class as far as I'm concerned. Rapid API used to be really good on that. Let's see. Because I definitely don't want you guys paying for anything. That's silly. We'll see what call. Do it this way. There we go. So this one has a collection of free APIs. Now that'll get us started. Okay, great. So there's a couple different ways. You have like IP stack where you can identify websites, market stack here, which will get stock data. That's typically what I played with in the past. You guys will play with one in here, like Yahoo Finance is one that you can use to deal with stocks. There's a couple others out here. So there's a whole index of good ones out here. Oh, wow, they got plenty. Well, we're going to change that link right now to get rid of Rapid API. And let's put in that's much better.
Right back.
The power of open source. Good call there. Okay, so now we got public APIs. Great. So tell you what, take a look at this site and see if there's one that you want to play with. I don't care what it is.
Oh yeah, the GitHub one.
Mm-hmm. Now, if anybody's done developing, there's a tool called Postman that you can use, which allows you to play with APIs directly and test and do those kind of things. You can sign up with their service if you choose to do that, or you can download their software. Again, we're not doing any of that. We're just gonna.
I like the food one, to be honest. There's
The
one
food one?
It's called Zestful, where you can parse recipe ingredients.
Zestful. In this one here?
Yeah, in there.
Zest. There we go.
Because I like taking TikToks or Instagram recipes and like.
Yeah, no, this works great. So here's Zestful. And so what this does is I believe you just sign up, but you can get it for free, right? There you go. 30 ingredient parses per day. So let's do that. Let's look at the about and the docs. And okay, so this one on the API reference, you have a post to parse ingredients. So that just has a one endpoint. Let's see if we can find one with multiple endpoints. Is there any other food ones in here? There we go. Open foods. I know that one should have one. Perfect.
Open food facts and open foods, I think.
There's a live JSON, XML. There we go. Now, some of these are just going to have a web API and not necessarily a quote Python API. And that's fine because all we're looking for is interacting with the end product there. So if they have a Python API, then what that means is you'll do like pip install open food facts. What they've done is they've created an OOP, like object-oriented programming, way of interacting with those APIs so that the endpoints that you would create, like your .gets or your .posts, that kind of thing, they've created functions for you that automatically do that kind of stuff. So it's really handy. It's much, much easier to get started. If you guys are looking at stuff for your projects, try to find something you pip install and use. So like, for example, when we use Yahoo Finance, we will pip install Y Finance. That's much easier to use because it's written for Python. If you're trying to use an open API, then you're going to end up using something that is just a request, which is what I want to show you guys here to start. So let me see if I can find one here. I like bacon. Well, that's scary. All right, we'll start with your Zestful just because it was there, right? So let's do this. Let's try it for free. And this is just here on the website, right? Okay. Bacon. And so you can see it'll find that. It'll give us the USDA match, the confidence, and then it's going to retrieve that kind of stuff. So here's how you can do this on this side. This one is going to use JSON, and then they have this parse ingredient. So again, they have a package for it. We're actually going to use a request way of doing this. Let me see. Yep, that should be close to that. And so for a copy and paste, I'm just going to do this here. That's one thing that Rapid API was really good about, was allowing you to copy and paste that stuff in. All right, we tend to use a request. So I'm just going to steal this little boilerplate code. And we're going to come over here to our project. We'll right click up at the top, new Python file, and we'll just call this, I don't know, test for now. Okay. And you will want to add this file to your Git. So that way we can save it. You'll notice it goes green over here on the left. If you make changes to a file, for example, if I come in here and add a character, you'll notice it goes blue. So that when you commit these changes, blue means you made changes, green means it's a brand new file. Right. So for here, I'm just going to take that back out. You'll notice it goes away when you look at that side. All right, so for test, we're just going to paste this little chunk of code in. And you guys can type it in while I'm in here because we're going to change this URL and stuff inside.
Is that, if you look on Rapid API, it has Zestful on there too.
Okay, perfect. So on this, what we need to do is import request. Now we'll note request has a red squiggly line underneath. That means that request is not installed in our virtual environment. So to do that, we need to click on the terminal icon down here in the lower left. And this should bring up a terminal for our project. You always want to check that this over here on the left shows up where it says .venv. That makes sure that you are in your virtual environment. If it doesn't say that, something happened over here on the practice side. It's not associated, or on the interpreter. So make sure your interpreter is, close this, relaunch the terminal, and make sure it says that over there. Right. If not, when I start in pip installing stuff, it's installing it on my computer and not on the virtual environment. You'll be confused when you go to run it and nothing happens. It just stops working. So we are going to do pip install requests. Okay. And you'll notice up here at the top that the red squiggly line will go away from the request side. Let's see if I can enhance here. Where's that? It's been a while since I had to do that. Code. View. There we go. Appearance and IDE. Can you guys see that better? That really got crazy. Hopefully that's a little better. All right. So in this URL, you can copy and paste whatever URL you need in there. For example, if we go back to this Zestful option, you'll notice that this is the URL that we want to submit to. Okay, so we'll just copy and paste that into here. And then whatever query string we want to put in, like this is asking for a key and this kind of stuff. It doesn't look like they have any kind of request in their little header here that would require that. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that. Query string. And it's because we're posting actually is the reason we don't have to have that. And then in the header, you'll notice the content type is set to application JSON. We don't need any of this rapid API stuff because we don't need a key or anything. So we'll just trim that down to there. It does want us to have a data connection. So we'll go ahead and submit data. Let's look like this. So that would end up being data. And for the data, we could go ahead and just copy and paste this here, get us started. Take that back to there. Get this structured in here. Okay. Ingredients. Yeah, matter of fact, we'll just trim this down for the time being. So again, we could give them multiple ingredients. We could do the data. Oh, headers didn't finish out, that's why. There we go. All right, so when we get our response, we want to send our data. And so instead of payload on the JSON that we send through there, we would send our data. We have our headers, our parameters. We don't really have a query string, so we should be okay on that side. Just kill that one there. That may be what it wants for data. All right. And then we can try to print out whatever response comes. So if we hit run, you'll notice in the results down here that we got a bunch of information in a nice little dictionary that's down here. It's kind of hard to read though, right? So the best thing to do is you can either one, come in here and print that out nicely. Does anybody remember how to do that from 360? There was a cool little package we used to print out dictionaries. It was all nice and pretty.
Print.
Yeah, there you go, pretty print, right? So import pp print, and we can do a pp print. In this case, we're going to do our response.json, right? So this one I'm going to comment out for the time being. There we go. We got a nice little output that we can actually read. Now you'll notice when I did this, I had to do the request the first time. We didn't like it. We did a request the second time. That's 2 requests I burned already, and we haven't even looked at the data. So in some of these APIs where you have a throttle limit, you can only do, like the one had 300 a day. You kind of want to get this initially in here. And then what I recommend is that you grab this output and put this into a new file just called data.py, like this. And you could just call this data equals up at the top. Then in your main script, you could just say, essentially ignore all of this by going into your code, and you could do a comment line. So we just comment all that out. And up at the top, we'll do a import data. And then that means that we will pull the information from this file in to whatever we were going to do over here to play with it. So for example, if we kept this pretty print, we could say pretty print data.data. Remember how we did that in 360 where we brought variables in from other files into this one? We can do this. The other way to do that would say from data import data, and that will directly import this dictionary across so that over here we could just use the one data file. That all make sense? Okay. So if we run this again, we get the same output, but we never had to go back out to the API and pull that data down. So when you guys are first learning or playing with APIs, I encourage you to do that. That way you don't smoke through all your API requests every single time you're doing it. Now, once you get your program written in the way you want, we'll then turn it back on and you can start pulling new data, let your program crunch it, display it, whatever you choose to do. So in this case, if we get this data back out, we want to kind of analyze these results, right? We notice in the requests remaining, we only have 27 requests available from probably our IP address or something like that. And every time I ran it, that would keep going down, right? In this error, this would probably give us back usually a HTTP status error. So if you come back out here on Blackboard, you'll want to remember this list of status codes. Anything that says 200 means everything went okay. Typical ones you guys will see are something like 404, which is not found, maybe a 302, which is a redirection if you guys plugged in the wrong URL or something like that. But this is a good repository of all those error codes so you can figure out what went wrong. Okay. So on this side, we know we have no error. We have our requests remaining, and then we have our results. So anytime we want to print just the results section, we have to see what comes back out of that. So if we wanted data dot results, and then we print that, you'll notice that results is not a dictionary, right? So if we go back and look at that, you'll notice that results is a what?
Information.
What's that?
Only information.
Yeah, it's not a dictionary, but it's a, what other type?
List.
List, right? So we need to make sure that when we want those results, we would pull that back from different pieces of the list. So the first result out of here, which is this whole thing, essentially, in this case, we would want to pull that in. So we would say data.result and then 0, right? Because that's the first one in that list. So if we print that, let's see here, we still didn't get the dictionary. This is the fun part where you get to figure this part out and what your data actually is. I know. Does anybody know what I'm doing wrong? I know what I'm doing wrong now. It's not dot, right? How do we do a lookup in a dictionary? Those square brackets, right? And then we
Square
put
brackets, yep.
the name of the key that we want to return. So in this case, we want results out of here. And we'll plug it in like that. Now we're getting down to just the chunk that is the results we actually care about. So in this case, in this list, there's only one result. So let's go ahead and take the 0 result of that. Okay, now we're down to just a dictionary that gives us the information we actually want to chunk. So if we really, instead of printing this whole thing out, we could just do this chunk. And then from there, let's say we wanted the ingredients parsed, right? Because that's all the information that it pulled out. We could get that information there, but we could just look up, say, ingredient raw. That would look like something like print that. And then we want to specifically look up, say, ingredient raw. And then run that. And you can see the result is bacon down here. We have to comment this one out so we don't get the whole thing. And it's bacon. All right. So you would keep working with your data in this fashion so that you could actually end up storing this information to get the output you want. So maybe you wanted to format this where it actually stored variables that came out of this information, stored that in something, or you pulled it out to where at the end you could just say my ingredient is bacon. And all of the description of that, I could go all the way into there and pull out just the description. This is where I need you guys to play with it for 2 weeks, because learning how to dive into that data, because you're going to be in that dictionary, sometimes 3 or 4 dictionaries within lists, right? So you have to figure out the best way for you to organize it in your own head to build it out. There is no have to do it this way kind of thing, right? Every programmer does their stuff differently. There's ways to be more efficient where you can pretty print this out, get an idea. I can even come back over here to my data list and see how I would drill all the way into that. Okay. Now in this tool, if I actually turned it on of the AI assistant over here, I could even tell it to, hey, given this data, how do I get out description? And it would actually tell you the full string to go get description out of there. All right. I don't want you to use that as a crutch. I want you to practice this way in the beginning. But when you guys are deep into your final project and you can't figure something out, that is what the tool is there for. All right. I won't tell you not to use it, because realistically, if they're putting it in the IDE, that is the way of the world now. Like, use it smarter, not harder kind of thing. Don't sit there and beat yourself up and waste hours trying to dig that out. Get it, move on so that you can get the rest of your project going. The number one thing that hurts students the most in this class is time management. They spend so much time trying to get something so perfect and right, they never get done with the other 4 assignments that are worth 90% of their grade. It happens every single semester. So in this class, time management, if you get stuck somewhere, call me, or email me is probably better, but you can call my office. Bring it up here in the Zoom chat, that kind of stuff, but don't sit there and hurt yourself trying to figure it out. Like, I encourage you to work on it, but don't beat yourself up for 14 hours trying to figure it out. Use something to help you get that answer, because you have a lot of other code to write. All right. So that's one example using the one that he pulled up there. If you come out here and go back to, say, this public APIs, again, find another one. So if we look at cryptocurrency, let's say we wanted to figure out, this one gets you block coin payments. Nope, that one's broke. Nope, let's find another one in here. By finance would have been what I would have thought. Binance is a good one. So Binance is a cryptocurrency exchange. You can sign up and get a key in there. It looks to me, based off this table that we're seeing here, anything that has auth means that you have to go get an API key, which means over here in your initial script file, in this header, you're going to end up having some kind of username or auth key or whatever. They're going to tell you how you make that request. Almost everybody has their stuff documented in there. All right. So let's look at something like random dog facts. Okay. In this case, this is the URL that you're going to send your request from, and that would get you all the facts all at once. If you change that parameter at the end from all to number, it's going to give you the number of facts that you choose that you want out of there. If we go to index, it's going to specify which one is specifically working. So this is a good example because they pretty much tell you exactly how you're going to do this, including running pip activation. You guys have already done that in your environment. But if we look down here, we can go grab this one here. And this one doesn't require any real input. We would just change our URL to that. And then in our requests, we really don't even need anything other than the URL. Let's turn this back on. Let's turn on our URL. We may need the headers. Let's turn that back on. And then we could say something like headers equals headers. Okay. What am I missing here? Need these lines. Although I don't think you'll even need those, but you should have that. And then at that point, let's go ahead and just print out our response and see what happens. Nope, that's definitely not formatted the way they want it. So they may not want it in JSON format. It looks like you're just going to do this one command here. And that should return it back. This was obviously a very simple and generic app. It may not be there. So we can also test this just by putting it in our browser and see what comes back. It looks like that project's dead. That's the problem with free stuff. A lot of times the free stuff isn't always working. Anybody else find one that was of interest here?
Someone says virus tool.
A virus tool?
Yeah.
Oh, total?
Virus total, yeah.
Yeah, so this is one students have definitely used and built projects around. So the idea behind this one is it allows you to upload files and then get a report as to whether or not it's truly malware or viruses. Or if you feed it a URL, it can sometimes tell you whether or not that one is a virus or something. So for example, let's do something like URL scan in this case, right? And then what you would need to do is it will get you a response code. It'll give you a verbose message saying, here's your scan, come back later for the report. Here's your scan ID, the date stamp, the URL, and then your permalink that you would end up using to come back and check. So this one, and if we change this up here to Python, they're going to tell you exactly how to use the request and pull that out. So if we grab this, and we copy that into our overall project. This looks good, but we need to obviously have a URL that comes back out of that because that's great for the scan part, but we don't actually tell it what to scan. Yeah, so in that API, there you go. In your payload, this is where you would pass in that. That's the stuff I was looking for. See it in there the first time. So you'll notice in this one, when you go to use this, they want your API key and they want the URL that you're looking to scan. So let's do something like fhsu.edu, and we could just put in the full one. Something like that. We would need an API key. So in this case, they want us to sign up and get an API key. Let's see here. Those docs are for version 2. There's a later doc for version 3. So let's make sure you're always on the right one when you do that, because otherwise you'll get triggered. Also, in some of these APIs, you're going to get things like the errors it returns. Use their documentation to go find out what that error means because it's pertinent to their API. All right. Well, the reason I'm showing you all these different ones and the way all this stuff works is there's a lot of reading you have to go do. All right. And it's all different based off what you choose. I can give you a little bit of direction, but I purposely leave it open so that I'm not saying you have to do this. On the first two homework assignments, you guys will do this so that I can give you guidelines. After that, you can do whatever you choose to do. Okay. So let's do something like URLs here again. And this would give us private scan a URL. This looks good. Sandbox response. Something like that, right? So if we try that, of course, we're going to get a response that needs an API key on this side. If we sign up for an API key, has anybody seen a sign up on this yet? Where you would go get your key? Usually there's a large sign up up at the top. You gotta, there we go.
There's an API overview tab right below that.
Does that give you a place to sign up? There we go. All right, so you would have to sign up for this API key and get an API key to access that. So the idea is the same when you come through on what we were looking at before here. This one, you would just get your API key from them and you would plug in that information here where it's requested for you to do that, depending on which API call that you're trying to do over here. So if you want to get an analysis report and you come over here, looks like you can go grab a specific ID for that analysis report. If you are sending it a scan, there again, you can do the request sample and plug in that information as necessary. So the URL you want to scan, the user agent. And what's nice like here is they've got the form data for you to test your stuff and it will auto fill in over here on the right. So really cool API pages have this kind of stuff and it's kind of handy to be able to do that. All right, let's see here. I'm trying to find one that doesn't require all the sign up stuff. Virus total is a good one though. If you guys are a cybersecurity student looking to do something project wise for this class, that's a good place to start. Anybody else see anything in here that's at least of interest to them?
The Drupal one?
This one here?
Mhm.
Okay. So this one's going to get you, I think you actually have to register on theirs too.
Oh,
You do. And most people want that so that they can contact you for more or something coming in there. I was hoping there was some other there's some test data. We'll play with Faker here in a little bit. Let's say random data generator. Nope, that one's dead. Is there a Bob's Burgers API? Nope, that one's offline.
What about the KBB one? Someone Kelly Blue Book. That one's quite used by pretty much everybody.
There we go. Gotcha. That one requires a key, but let's see if we can sign up relatively easy with a key. So on authentication, authorized, yep. Try me. There we go. Authorize. Let's see here. I'll show you where you go get it. It's the browser. You should register for an API key. All right, great. Where do I register? This again shows you the importance of documentation when you guys do your projects. Like nobody can deal with your project if they don't have the things like sign up for the API.
The authorized button at the top.
Which one?
If you go back one, it's an authorized tab, authorized button.
Yeah, that one wanted you to plug in your API key. which we don't have.
Okay.
This one was getting us closer. If possible, let us know which APIs you intend to access. Okay, you got to send them an email or something to obtain it.
So useful.
No. But hey, as cybersecurity guy, that one might be fun to have.
What does it do?
That one allows you to do lookups on VIN numbers and cars and then get like values of the car, that kind of thing back. UPS. Sorry, I'm looking through here to see if there's something that's relevant.
Anything related to weather, like AccuWeather or some kind of weather?
Yeah, I
Fancy,
saw those. AccuWeather and those are usually a little bit harder to pull, but there are free ones that you can pull out there. So like this one, let's see if these guys actually have a. This is civilian. Let me look out here. There's one that I know I've done with students quite a bit on the weather side. See if they have it listed here. Aviation, meta-weather, OD. Yeah, that one might work. Yep, this is one we've used in the past. So to play with this one, pricing wise, everything's free, so we don't have to do anything on that side of it. On the authentication side, we don't have to do any real authentication, so we should be able to. If we go to examples, how do I get the forecast? Then you can go ahead and do calls of this kind of stuff in here. So for example, if we want like the forecast for this, we pass in a latitude and longitude, we can get it back that way. This is the one I wanted to get. So let's do, it's been a while since I've done this, but if you watch old videos, you'll see one like this one too. Get you an example here. So let's do something like this one, right? We plug this in, it should get us back a response that looks like this. And then we could go and tailor that a little bit easier to kind of look and see what we actually want out of there. So to do that request, we would pull something like this one. Let's pull that into our string. We would set our URL here, and we could adjust this latitude and longitude for us. So to do that, we could come out here. Let's look up heymaps.google.com. And let's come over here to Fort Hays. And usually, if you double click on this or even single click, come on, give me the little pop-up again. There we go. There's the latitude and longitude. We can click on it. Perfect. In which case we can copy this out. We'll have to do a little bit of cleanup there, but okay. So what do we have? 35.52. It's actually not the easy way to do that. Normally they give you the nice little clean one up here at the top. Today they're going to make that difficult. Well, hello. Let's just go in that direction. That's easy enough. 35.2 is good enough. Let's do 99.2. We could get more exact later down the road. So if we take that, plug it in there, take 38, plug it in there. That gets us roughly close. Okay. We don't need a payload of that side. We actually don't need a payload at all. And then on the headers, that looks good. We got a response, so we're going to take out that. take out our code. Content type is JSON. All right, let's see what our response comes back. Yay, there we go. We got HTML with denied access. Okay, well, that's less than desirable. So we need to end up sending some kind of header information through there. So let's go back here to this. We're going to want some context or something. There we go. That is rough. That is the JSON that you would want in order to pull that out, but
That's just calling.
so let's do this. These Kansas. We used to have a much better way of displaying this. So this is the kind of information you can get back out of the API, is like all of this forecast, the actual detailed forecast, all of this page is built off that API. You just have to find the right API calls to pull that information. So for example, in here, that's the grid one. You would want the latitude and longitude, and then you can do the forecast in those different points. They used to have a nice grid points. There we go. So we could copy and paste this in here. Nope. I don't know where we're going, but that's where we're going. 200.
Execute.
Okay, so there's the curl, and again, that's our request URL, something like that. That looks pretty close to what we had before. A lot of this was very, very easy, and they made this very difficult. So let's try. And this will give you like the detailed stuff that will come out. So this is a string they're returning. This is a array or something like where they're going to return a list for the urgency. So you can get real deep into their API. This is why I used to have a bunch of examples, because every year I try to do this openly and then it just blows up every year. So it's also the problem of using live data, right? Everybody changes. Okay, so obviously we're at 2:43. That'll get us started. The quote homework before Thursday is to come out here and find one of these that you guys would like that is free, and preferably one that we don't have to register for the auth. So the auth should say no. And then we will go through those examples on Thursday. We'll also introduce you to Faker, which is a way to fake a bunch of data. And then next week, we're also going to stick on this API till you guys are familiar with pulling data in and out. All right. So again, your homework is just to kind of come in here, find one that's in here, see if you can dig data out of one, right? Just the most simplest way of digging data out of it. Like this one, you can get the aviation charts and you can see the result of this one coming out here, all right? My whole goal for now is that you just print the data out nice and clean down here on the command prompt. So if we go all the way back to where we started, and we have this results, right? Get this to where it prints in a nice clean little sheet. In other words, we save this data as this is this, and then do a nice little print of the data coming out there. Does everybody remember that from 360? Probably not you, because you're going through it at the moment. You remember it from 360 where we just printed out nice little clean data?
On my mind.
So like if we looked at this, we know that 0 was our next one, right? So we go 0, we print that. Okay, now we're in the list. So now this next one is confidence. And so we could even save that variable as our confidence equals results 0. And in this case, our confidence. And so then if we come down here and just print confidence, we should get the result coming back in. Oh, that's because this is, yeah, it's there, fine. Didn't print what I've missed.
Can you find zero?
Yeah, there's some kind of, oh, this, that's why. There you go. And so that printed out our confidence level. So we could store this variable of what this is, and we can keep doing that till we get all of those assigned to individual variables. Then you guys can print out a nice little list here, however you see fit. All right. Right now, it's pretty basic, right? All we're looking to do is just retrieve data from an API, print it out to the screen so that we can consume it in some fashion. If we go back and look at our full response on this one, nope, that's not the one I want to do. I want to bring this other one back. So print data, this guy, and 0. Let's just print this whole thing. There we go. And we have that all out. Again, we could use pretty print so that we could see it. Hit the wrong button up there. There we go. Okay, so we could pull out the ingredient raw. Let's try to get clear into this USDAA. So what would that look like based off what we see here? Let's call this our USDA info is what?
It's 6.
So it's something like this, right? This one that it tried to create. But you'll notice we need to actually get inside of our ingredients parsed first because that's a dictionary. So we would have something like ingredients. Okay. That should get us down to this one, which would then give us out this little dictionary here. Let's see if we at least get that. And that's fine. I just need to stop printing the same thing. Yeah. There we go. So now we have that. All right. And that gets us our category, our description, and that. Even to get that out nice and clean, we could just pretty print this in a way that would do that nice and clean. Or what's the best way for us to do this? Does anybody remember in 360 how we printed things out nice and cleanly? USDA items, right? And then we could just print whatever it was. So print K, print V. If we look at that one, that gives us our little category in that side. We could actually do our formatted string, if you guys remember that one. So print F, and then we set up our string the way we wanted it. So it'd be something like K colon V, like that. And then, of course, we have to have that in our brackets. So it would look something like F, that one. Plugs in those variables. And now we have something like that. Nice and clean and easy for us to be able to read. Make sense? And then, of course, instead of bacon in this original request, which we had up here, right? Ingredients bacon, we could say coffee. And so now, instead of that, what we would do is in this response, we would change this from response to data. We would kill this data line. We don't need our pretty print anymore. We could clean up all this stuff out of here. This we can all uncomment. So let's go to view. Sorry, code. Okay. So now that we put coffee back into play, let's see what happens. And in this case, this results. Is that because we stored it over here? Yeah, data and then results. We might not have got results, so we could double check our request up here. Let's do pretty print data.json. Of course, we have to put back in our pretty print. See what we get. All right, so we got something back here for coffee. That looks acceptable. So no problem there. Oh, this is wrong. This would be, let's do it this way, response. And then our response, we want to set data is equal to response.json. That puts it in the right format so that it's JSON when we pull it in. So if we have there, yes, it does. Oh, not this one won't, just data would. Like that. There we go. And down here, it grabbed those into one. So if we took out our pretty print, boom, now we got our nice little clean one for coffee. Now all we have to do is change the line in our code for this to ham. And we would get the USDA stuff back on ham. Make sense? Now, obviously, as we do this, notice that our request is going to go away. So if I take that one there and hit respond, notice that my request remaining is going down to 23. So we might want to store that variable knowing that we could run out of requests real soon. It's probably X amount every so often.
When we save it and we reuse it, it does not go down like the amount of requests remaining.
My guess is it's a time on the model request, and it's an IP address of where you're coming from. So it probably resets with time. We could go look at their API and figure that out, but that's my assumption. So now that we've made those adjustments, we could go ahead and commit this project. So again, we'll click on this one here, add these changes and say, this is an API example that looks up ingredients and prints the USDA information. All right, commit and push, push. And it's out there. Now, the beauty is this is out here on mine. So you guys are welcome to always come out here and pull off that one. For example, the code in the classroom. So if I do a GitHub/profz practice API, not that, just give me that one. You guys can come out here and actually check out this code. And in that code, you could copy and paste this stuff and test it. So if you guys want to practice with this and need this boilerplate code to do that, it's out there under my practice API one. You guys can pull it and do that. All right. There's other projects out there that you'll see on that account. Some of them are useful, some of them are not. If you see a bunch of mini project stuff out there, I need to go in and trash that kind of stuff out of there because we're going to be doing new stuff for all this. So don't use this as reference for this semester. That's usually why I need to go through and just clean them up. All right. What do you guys feel like? At least got a handle on how to get started? Won't know till you play with it? How about Cindy, Rafat, Jamie? How do you guys feel? I guess that response is overwhelmed. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.